I've been getting a lot of questions lately about zooms, zooming, and getting closer to the subjects. People are getting the 18 to 55 and the 18 to 135, especially those who have moved up from kind of your super zoom point and shoots. And you have to realize now that some of those are giving you 10, 20, 30, and even 50x of magnification. That is a whole lot of zoom. Of course, out at that end of that zoom, your quality is, but it still got you very close, and it's very satisfying to be able to zoom in so close from such a distance. The 135 works out to be about a 7.5 times zoom. The 18 to 55 is a 3x zoom. And now what gets kind of confusing about this is a zoom from what? Well, you know, believe it or not, that's how point and shoots work. When they tell you that it's a 20 times zoom, it's 20 times from whatever starting point, whatever millimeter focal length that lens is starting at. So there is no baseline for a zoom. That's just something to keep in mind. And I'll tell you something else, that it doesn't matter if you own one of these giant zoom lenses, which actually this is less zoom than this. This is a 70 to 200. This is a 70 to 300. Why such a difference in size? Well, this is a constant f2.8, and it's Canon's nice L glass. This is a very nice lens as well. The price has come up a little bit lately, but it's still a great lens. I'll tell you what though, I've never put on a zoom lens, almost never, and said, gee, I'm happy with how close I am, I don't want to get any closer. No, almost every time I've put a zoom lens on, I go, gosh, I wish I was just a little bit closer. Maybe those folks out there that own the 400, the 500, the 800 millimeter, maybe they're happy with how close they're getting, but very infrequently am I. So I wanted to take a few moments and show you how you can zoom closer with whatever lens you have. And this may be a little cheap, but it's really just cropping your image. We are starting with these 18 megapixel images. Here's my hand, 18 megapixels is between my hands. And there was just a couple years ago that we were very happy with 5 megapixels. You can get decent prints out of a 5, 4, and even a 2 megapixel image. Now, not gigantic prints, but 4x6s, 5x7s, and even 8x10s can be had down in those lower megapixel ranges. So you can do a good bit of cropping, and especially since most of the time we're not printing these images now, we're just sharing them on Facebook or Flickr, and you can do a whole lot of cropping and get a whole lot closer to your subject without spending any more money. So let's take a look at a couple images that I shot today with the Canon T4i and the 18 to 135 lens. The squirrel was outside my office window, and I don't know, probably about 30 yards away. And you know, as I said, you never seems like you're close enough when you zoom, but we're starting with an 18 megapixel image here. And if I go back to the library real quick, we can see that its dimensions are 5,000, let's round that up, 5,200 by 3,500. You multiply those two things times each other and you get basically 18 megapixels. We can also zoom in here, and currently I have it set to 1:1. So when we zoom in, we can get a lot closer, but we are starting to lose some detail. We can see a good bit more noise. It was shot at ISO 800 to keep my shutter speed high enough in this kind of gray, rainy day. But let's back out a little bit and move into Develop module, where I have my crop tool. Now, in this case, you want to make sure, or I wanted to make sure, that my aspect ratio stays the same. Let's say that I wanted to get a little print of this. So I do want to make sure I'm still shooting it at this aspect ratio if I was going to get a 4x6 print. And I'm going to keep the aspect as shot. And now, with my cropping tool turned on, I can simply grab a corner and drag in. Actually, with that lockdown, I could grab a side too, and it keeps that aspect ratio in check for me. And so now, let's go right here, and that's probably a little bit too much. Let's back out a little bit. And using my rule of thirds, because we can see those faint rule of third lines on the screen when I have the cropping tool applied, I can hit done. And you can see that we're a good bit closer now without losing much quality. And let's go back and check our dimensions real quick and see that we're still at 2,800 by 1,800. Again, if we did some rough math and rounded this up to 3,000 by 2,000, we still are working with a 6 megapixel image. plenty large enough for posting on Facebook, and even plenty large enough for getting a 4x6, a 5x7, or an 8x10 image out of this. So we could crop it even a little bit more if we want, but I think this is close enough in this case. And you know, I'll add just a little bit of clarity, and a tiny bit of increasing the highlights, because I think that the gray sky looks a little bit better white. It's already kind of blown out gray. Why not make it blown out white? So quite easy. Got a lot closer without spending any more money. You say, well, wait, Lightroom isn't free. Well, for one, the trial version is of course free, but I'll show you a completely free way in just a second. Before that though, let's work on one more image. Here's another image I shot today with some raindrops sitting on these kind of lily leaf. And again, same 18 megapixel image, so it is that 5,000 and some odd by 2,000 and some, or 3,000 and some odd. And let's crop it again, but let's go ahead and change our aspect ratio to our favorite Instagram 1:1 square and bring this down. Now it's going to keep it 1:1 for me. And somewhere right around there, I kind of like those drops intersecting on those lines. I'm going to click done. And I'm going to increase the clarity here as well. And this time I'm going to increase the vibrance and the saturation just a little to make the image pop just a little bit more. And I kind of like this curve arching through the middle of the image. It's not my favorite image, but it works. And let's look at what our dimensions are now of this image. It is, curiously, there it goes. Say it not square, 23 by 23. So again, still we could get a print of this. It will be a square print, but we could get a print of that. So two very simple and easy ways to get a lot closer to your subjects by cropping. Let me show you a free version now. I'm going to minimize this. So I was working with the raw images. Here we go. And now we have we have pixlr.com, and I really like their Express version. This is completely free. It's an online photo editor. I'm going to hit Browse. Now those are raw files I was working with, so I have exported them without touching them. So this is pre-cropping. Well, you can see that I've already done this once. But let's pull up the leaf one again. I'm going to click Open. And it opens it up in my browser. I'm just working in the Chrome web browser. Click the Adjustment tool. And one of the tools that flies up and out of here is the crop tool, and it's going to look very similar to the tool in Lightroom. We get our rule of thirds on here. We have our aspect ratios down here. If I wanted to put this on my widescreen TV that I don't own, I could go 16 by 9. Let's do that just for fun. And let's bring it in a good bit. We can drag and drop. I actually like more of that arch being shown in the background. And hit Apply. And we even have our auto fix, and we have our sharpen here too, which is very similar to our clarity. So you can see that that brought in a lot of sharpness. You want to be careful, since I mentioned TV, you don't want to put too much sharpness on images that are going to be shown on TVs. They are really susceptible to too much. So I'm going to say save, and I'm going to call this Arch Edited, and quality 85, and save it. You can see that it's actually going to be quite a small file size. But again, if we're posting this to Facebook, perfectly acceptable. So this was taken not with a macro lens, but by cropping, you can almost get a macro feel to the image. And this was completely and totally free. So, a free way to get a lot closer to your subjects, either zoom for wildlife or macro shots like these water drops on leaves. If you've got any questions about cropping, zoom lenses, Lightroom, Pixlr, just leave a comment down below, or even better, come over and find me on Facebook. I check that a little more often, and I'm a little faster to respond over there, but you know, I'll respond to your question wherever you leave it. I would love a subscription and a thumbs up. It's really encouraging to see those. It helps keep me going as far as making new videos, and also your video ideas. Just leave a comment down below if there are topics that you'd like to see covered in a future video. Thanks so much for watching.